Hey everybody, it's David with No Chaser, and today's topic is going to be something more personal, anecdotal, but it speaks to the nature of addiction and alcoholism and blah 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 blah. Anyways, it is about the moment I got addicted. Now, Ernest Hemingway once said that bankruptcy and financial ruin happened two ways at the same time, gradually and suddenly. I kind of get what he means, but he's also an alcoholic. And in the same sense, I also think that this is kind of how, like, addiction sort of happens. It happens suddenly, you get hooked, but also kind of gradually the way you build up to it. But in reality, the more I think about it, I think there are, addicts and alcoholics have very similar patterns and share a lot of the same characteristics in their lives and the behaviors that they do. But it doesn't mean all the routes are the same. There's some people that get addicted in later in life. There's some people that, I knew that drank and kind of stopped drinking and then drank and then were hooked, whatever. Like for me, so I drank when I was like 12 the first time. I just got hammered off of a huge amount, like 3 shots of vodka. I say it in quotes because I don't know, it probably weren't even shots. And like I smoked weed like shortly after that too because I'm cool. And if I remember first time I smoked weed, it's just so it probably wasn't even weed first of all. And I rolled it. I used like computer like printer paper. I didn't have any rolling papers or anything, and it was so seedy. It was like when it lit it. The computer paper smell, and it was like the seeds would pop. It's like listening to like a bug zapper. Just it's awesome, dude. I don't think I even really got high that time. I think I just like got dizzy from like the chemicals I was ingesting. But anyways, probably the pesticides on the not weed I was smoking. But like I had, my like drug choice is alcohol, but I had drank and didn't get hooked that first time. I just kind of was. I don't know. It was like I just got so kind of wasted that it was just not really anything. It was like, well, it was a crazy. It's like going on a roller coaster. Like, oh, that was the thing we did. You drank, and then there was a couple times I drank after that, and I did enjoy it. But for me, there was a time where I got hooked, and it started out with pills. It started out with I thought it was my wisdom teeth. It wasn't. It was actually molars that I had to be taken out. And it was when I was 15 and I was given Vicodin. And the thing about that is that there is like, you talk about like aha moments or revelations in your life, things like that. And I had a very distinct aha moment. I mean, it was honestly like a spiritual experience. Like during that time, I was struggling with depression. I struggled with depression for years before that, even at a young age, and kind of like I don't know, nothing really going on where I felt I need saving from. I just always felt kind of uncomfortable in my skin, even if I got along socially and whatnot. But I remember the chemicals hit, and it wasn't, I get to say all the aesthetic feelings, which might be triggering, and I don't need to anyways, because it wasn't quite that. It was the feeling I got of this contentment, and it was this like a tectonic shift, like a seismic sort of change in my brain, where it wasn't like this was like I mentioned before, like going on a roller coaster, like whoa, that was super fun, but it's not like a religious experience. You're like that was cool, even people that go like skydiving or something, that was really cool, and it was kind of life changing. But after maybe like 2 weeks later, they're like, meh, it was great, I guess, but. This was, I remember it. And the thing was, stupid 15-year-old David, which even stupid now David, is trying to, deal with still. But I should have seen this as, super red flags, is that it was this, when I talk about this tectonic shift, it was this just total change in a paradigm of this perception of my life where I was like, whoa, there's a way to feel good, and I need to do this all the time. I didn't even think about it in this way that I was addicted. If I would have just stopped and like followed through what my thoughts were going through. I was like, this means you're addicted because you literally just said I need to do this all the time. But it didn't even process to me like that. And in fact, I didn't even use it addictively like right away or like the next day I got it and did it. But it was this sort of like, it was a change in my full sort of like idea about how to function in life, where I felt, you know, it was in a sense about this idea of control, which, you know, I didn't think of it. You think being addicted to drugs and alcohol, you're totally out of control. But it was control because I got to dictate how my mood was. And I couldn't do that before. And in fact, that was one of my big struggles, was that it was just so wayward. I would just be sad for no reason. And I thought things that I thought would make me happy didn't. And I didn't know what was going to. And I just kind of had to like live life, as you hear in recovery like circles, like live life on life's terms. And I hated doing that because it wasn't going well for me at the time. And instead of like learning things like character and discipline and patience and stuff like that, I was like, no, cheat code, except not cheat code, actually like super destroy your life thing. I found this way to hack. I mean, actually, it's a good way to put it, hack, not as in like sort of like hack into my brain for something better, but like with an axe, like hack into my brain to where I can dictate how I feel. And I will take this thing, none of this old crazy stuff about like finding purpose and meaning and navigating life, especially at a young age where you're dealing with all this stuff and you're like learning what life even is and responsibilities are, or what gives you enjoyment, or what risk and rewards. None of that. Just this thing in here, feel good. And that was some like algebra I could get on board with, because the other algebra I was also terrible at. So it was just really like, honestly, like revelatory without me even knowing it was revelatory. It was this thing where I remember I felt good, and it was, you know, part of it, I think the big thing about getting hooked on it too was that it came from an unexpected, I was not expecting it. It was not like, again, going back to the roller coaster thing, I don't know why, but it helps, like, sets a contrast to this, where you stand in line, and you've heard about roller coasters before, and you're like, you know, you're prepared for something crazy to happen, but this was, honestly, now, I didn't even take the recommended amount, because I was stupid, and I could drink and stuff, and I was like, my face hurts, I'll take double the amount, and that feeling kicked in, and it was this, again, it wasn't so much about that, like, oh, this feels really good, so I need to do it more often. It was like a new approach to the way of existence, because I could be I could dictate the way that I would feel, or so I thought I could. I mean, in a way I could, in this strange way I was manipulating it, but there's like compound interest to what I was doing. And in a very like similar way, it's like the addiction is like being in a serious debt with like a bad loan shark, where you're just getting your kneecaps breaking out, and you're always like high interest, and you're always paying back debt, and the debt's getting worse, and you have to go to payday loans and all that type of stuff. But this was what, you know, I know other people differ, because some people just gradually, like over time, they just kind of find themselves, you know, addicted, especially like with alcohol. Like one common thing that I hear a lot was that nobody told me that the party was over when the party was over. Like they kind of drank like they did in high school and then college. And then when other people like slowed down and gear shifted towards more what their life was and stopped with all the craziness or whatever, they kind of kept going and tried to like incorporate that in their life. And like I said, I first got addicted to opiates, and the funny thing is that I went to treatment when I was 19 for it. I was like, oh boy, that was a bad time in my life. Luckily, that's over. We're done with it, and drugs are bad. I super know that, obviously. I should have known that before. I was told that, but, you know, whatever. But alcohol, I mean, you know, that's America, baby. That's a way of life. And even then, I knew I was addicted to that, because it was still using that same sort of mechanism that the opiates were doing, where it was this idea of control that I could dictate how I felt. And then it kind of came to be where like that was, I fell out of drugs and I didn't even want to go back to it because I was like, alcohol is way easier. It's super not, but just as more socially acceptable. Except I wasn't even doing it in socially acceptable ways too. That's the other thing, is that I could kind of be a covert alcoholic, like in college and stuff, like drinking every night. But like at a certain point, it's just like drinking alone. It's not even college stuff. Like beer showers or something. Like, haha. It's just like having cheap vodka at like 2 p.m. on a Tuesday is like not college life, dude. It's like sad life, man. And so I know some people differ in their own ways, but that I know, and sometimes I know a lot when I go through like retrospect, like a lot of people do. They put on like narratives and to make things make more sense of their life. It's kind of a natural thing to do, but I know, even at that moment, even like ridiculously dumb 15-year-old Dave was like, whoa, this is pretty like impactful and big going on here. We're not going to think about it, but I know it's there, and it's going to change my life. Not for the good, but I'm trying to make it for the good. That's what this channel is about, it's with just the experience of being an alcoholic and addict, so... if you're watching this and you're struggling, I wish you well. If you're doing well, keep it up. Happy for you and happy for anybody just lack of suffering in their lives. People that are watching this aren't addicted, that have people in their lives that are addicted. Just wish everybody well and just any ease from the suffering of this affliction. But that was a very serious way to end it. That's all.